Welcome to the Geek Homeworld. I am your host, Ed, aka Savage Tech Man. We talk sci-fi, TV, movies, superheroes, and all from a geek perspective. You can find us on Blogger, Google+, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. We're everywhere. Join the Geek Homeworld. Hello there, and I am your host, Ed, aka Savage Tech Man, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Geek Homeworld podcast. This is episode 101, and this is me getting an episode in for the month of October. It's actually Halloween when I am doing the podcast episode here, and I want to thank everybody who's been listening, who's been following us all these 4 years we've been on the podcast and through my 10 years of podcasting. So today I just wanted to talk briefly about where we are year to date, as we're coming into basically November and December, the last 2 months of the year. And I was looking at some of the box office numbers, and this is the top 10. And coming in at 187 million at the time of the recording of this is Venom, which for Sony has been a monstrous pun intended there for Halloween and for the symbiote, or symbiote as they say, but it's symbiote. Anyway, Venom, a big surprise hit there. And it was actually R-rated and kind of pushed down to that PG-13 level so we could get more of a wider audience. And it's actually, as of this past weekend, it's sitting at 187, basically 188 million. And it's coming in at number 10 for the year. Now, one of the Oscar-worthy movies that I'm going to probably say in my thinking for this year is A Quiet Place, and that was a phenomenal success. It is Venom is right on its heels, but it's at number 9, Paramount movie there, and you remember the whole family that for 400 days or something could not utter a word, and they're now greenlighting a sequel to that. I'm not sure where or how that's going to go, but if it's anything like the original one, I don't know if you catch lightning in a bottle a second time or whatever, as the saying goes, but I don't know. It was a spectacular movie. It is a spectacular movie. One of the best, if probably will be in my top favorites for the year. Definitely should be or will be. A Quiet Place, and it was done on just a minimal budget. Not in here, obviously, yet at the time of this, but Halloween came out a couple weekends ago, and it has done phenomenal. And Jamie Lee Curtis, the first actress, I should say, over the age of 55 or something, to star in a massive success and in the horror genre. I mean, it's breaking all kinds of records, but basically the reboot, sort of, or whatever, direct sequel to the original of Halloween. And if you listen to my show, Sven on Film, I actually talked with one of the gentlemen that worked in that movie, and he gave me some behind-the-scenes stuff and some stuff that wasn't in the interview that may surface later once the Blu-ray DVD streaming comes out. I may have him back on the show then. But Halloween is runaway hit, but it's not in our top 10. It's, in the top 10 for the year financially, not yet, but it's doing quite well and made on a $10 million budget. And that's kind of similar to the number 9 film we're talking about here, which was A Quiet Place. The next film opens up a can of worms for me. And I'm a Star Wars fan. I'll always be a Star Wars fan. But The Last Jedi, I know, split a lot of people in the fan base. And mainly because of how Luke Skywalker was handled his character. And then part of that backlash, whatever, was against the number 8 movie for the year, which did just about $214 million, Solo, A Star Wars Story. Now, if you follow the podcast, we've talked about it, and I gave my review on it, and this and that, and it was a fun movie. I only saw it once. I really just didn't really want to go and see it a second time. And the thing about it is, I just think Disney's trying, and I think they're course correcting. Hopefully not as bad as with episode 9 as just DC did with Justice League, and made a mess of a movie there. And even though it has some redeeming qualities, it's fractured at best. Justice League is. But anyway, at number 8 for the year so far is Solo, A Star Wars Story. And I'm going to be talking to a gentleman this weekend, actually, from the recording of this, who did a fan film called Odyssey, A Star Wars Story, fan film for 2018. And I'm going to be talking to him on Savannah on Film, so you might want to check that out. And if you follow my social media, you'll find your way there. It's also on Facebook. You can go there, like the page, follow my radio show that I do there. And I'm also following a Vader series that's being done, a fan film that's going to be coming out in about a month or so at the latest, and maybe more on that to come soon. But anyway, somehow Solo drummed up $214 million domestic. I'm just talking domestic box office here. And yet it still is the number 8 movie of the year so far as of this recording. Now that could change. So I think that Solo was a fun movie, but I like how they brought in Ron Howard, who's a wonderful director, and he really shouldn't be blamed for anything, but there was such bad taste in everyone's mouth, or so to speak, from The Last Jedi, even though I appreciated things about The Last Jedi, and I've had several episodes here that you can check out on the podcast where I talked about The Last Jedi, and it took me 3 times watching The Last Jedi for me to finally deal with the death of Luke Skywalker. And I wish they would have actually held that until episode 9 somehow, but with Carrie Fisher's untimely death, episode 9 was supposed to be her movie, and so I get that, but Rian Johnson, it's just been so much turmoil with The Last Jedi and then leading into Solo, so I don't know, it just leaves a lot to be desired. So I don't know, there are people that totally love Solo, and but for the true diehard fans of Star Wars, Solo didn't feel like, there were some things about it I didn't like. There were things I did like, and there were things about The Last Jedi that I liked, but I think The Last Jedi felt more like a Star Wars movie than Solo did. In fact, I think the prequels felt more like a Star Wars films, which they were. They felt more in line with that whole feeling of being part of the trilogy, or 6 movies, 9 movies now, than Solo did. And I know Solo was like Rogue One. It was a Star Wars story, but Rogue One worked perfectly. It was a little plot hole device that worked. I mean, it was riddled with flaws and different things, of course, but for that Vader scene alone, it's worth watching. So, number 8 for the year so far, Solo, A Star Wars Story. Now, number 7, Ant-Man and the Wasp. I liked the first Ant-Man. I thought it was funny. And Ant-Man and the Wasp, I thought was good. It was filmed partially here in Savannah, where I live, and I know friends that were on the production, and it came in about just shy of $217 million for the year so far, and it's a modest success. It's down there towards the bottom with Ant-Man and the Incredible Hulk for Marvel, so one of the least performing ones, but still, I don't have any problem with, the movie itself. It was fun. It was okay. The cast was good. I enjoyed it, so I don't feel ambivalent towards it. Now, number 6 is Mission Impossible Fallout, and it at 220 million domestic box office for the year. It came in as the highest grossing dollar-wise domestic, and I think international also, or worldwide also, of the entire, but definitely for the domestic part, of the entire 20-plus year Mission Impossible series of movies. And I think this was what, the 5th or the 6th. We had Mission Impossible 1, 2, and 3, then Ghost Protocol, Rogue Nation, and then Fallout. So that's 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, this is a 6th movie, and I'm looking for a 7th. As long as Tom Cruise can still do another one, you know, if it's as good as Fallout, I totally enjoyed it. It was one of my fun movies of the year. Paramount just knocked it out of the park there, and still the most bankable movie star, I think, in the world. Action star, at least, at the very least. And so much more. A great businessman, Tom Cruise. What a wonderful performance. What a great job for Mission Impossible Fallout. I couldn't be happier for it. So thoroughly enjoyed that. Now, another movie that went total R-rated was Deadpool 2. It came in at about 318, almost 319 million, number 5 for the year so far, domestic, and thoroughly enjoyed it. Was scared to death that they would mess up the character of Cable, which I love the whole Cable storyline from the comics in the 90s and X-Men cartoon, which was still the best adaptation of any incarnation of X-Men. And there's been a few movies that have come close, and Josh Brolin just nailed the character. I mean, he was serious enough, badass enough, and playing against, you know, Deadpool was just, it was a good fun movie. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the effects. There was a lot of CGI in it, and I don't know if we're going to get a Deadpool 3, but if we don't, I think there's 2 great movies there that I thoroughly enjoyed, and they really opened the door. The first Deadpool opened the door for Logan being R-rated. And so Logan is a masterpiece. And I was talking with a guest recently, a friend of mine, Ken, from the film industry, and he was on my last show last weekend as of this recording, and we were talking, and we didn't dive deep into it, but we talked about with not Deadpool, we talked about Logan. Other than The Dark Knight, they're still chasing The Dark Knight, and I think we might have mentioned it on the show that Marvel, DC is still chasing Dark Knight. It's still the tentpole. It's a movie that transcended the comics, transcended just comic book movies. And now the new Joker movie coming out with Joaquin Phoenix, I like the direction of it, and I'm excited for it. And I've seen like a mini trailer on it, so a little teaser, bit of a trailer, and some of the photos look really good. It just looks like they're going for a different kind of Joker, and it's great. I am not a fan of Jared Leto's Joker. I think he's an excellent actor. He was wonderful in Blade Runner 2049 and some other films that he's done. And but I was not just a fan of Suicide Squad. It just didn't work for me. I just, I mean, you can check out my review of that on an earlier episode here of the podcast, geekhomeworld.libsyn.com. You can check us out on iTunes podcast, Geek Homeworld. And anyway, so Deadpool 2 came in at number 5. But, I'm sorry, the point that I was going to make was that Logan, because I mentioned Logan in there, is basically a Western, and we have a whole episode, Logan No More, I think was the name of it, which I thought was an apropos title for our episode. But for the movie Logan, I think that Hugh Jackman, great swan song for him, and Patrick Stewart going out of the franchise there. And I'm excited for X-Men Dark Phoenix. I'm hoping that maybe the Westchester incident that happened with Xavier, maybe that was Onslaught from the comics. And if you haven't looked it up, if you don't know the original story of Onslaught, you should definitely check that out. But anyhow, my point is, Logan was the closest thing to Dark Knight, and it transcended comic book movies. It was basically made as a Western that just happened to have some comic booky-ish, things about it. So, I totally applaud that movie, but DC, keep trying, but Logan on the Marvel side and DC with the Dark Knight, I don't think you'll ever top what Christopher Nolan did in Dark Knight, but he couldn't top himself. He tried, but anyway, so Deadpool 2, about 319 million domestic for the year at number 5. Now at number 4, didn't really care for it. It was a sequel to Jurassic World. It was Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. At this time of the recording, it's number 4 with about 417 million. So another hit for Universal, and definitely probably see another one. Didn't have a problem with the actors in it. It wasn't that. It just, I don't know. It didn't feel like it broke new ground. A friend of mine, Richard, who's been on my radio show and also in the film industry, he big Jurassic Park fan, so he's going to like Jurassic Park from the beginning, Jurassic World. And yeah, I know he was probably a little let down by it, but he's, it's still probably, for him, still a great movie. And, it wasn't a terrible movie. I mean, there's some great sequences in it. I just don't feel like it was ambitious enough. And, but 416 million, you can't sneeze at that, almost $500 million. And speaking of $500 million, a movie that I've been waiting for, a friend of mine, Anthony, I used to podcast a lot with, he's definitely was waiting for this, Incredibles 2. And I think it was every bit as much as good as the original, if not better. And it topped the almost $608 million domestic box office. So Incredibles 2 ends up, as of the recording of this, at number 3. And Disney is just owning it. They own most of the movies that come out now, quite literally. But they're just doing a great job. And Incredibles 2 it hit on every cylinder, and you didn't have to really watch the first one to get this one, and it flowed really well. It was just a fun movie, just like the Incredibles are supposed to be, so no problems there with Incredibles 2. Thoroughly enjoyed it, glad I saw it, and it ends up for number 3 so far for the year. Now, the movie, the snapper around the multiverse, Avengers Infinity War, 678 million, almost 679 million. Number 2 for the year, and that's probably where it'll end up. That being said, though, it could possibly easily be one of my top films of the year. And what I'm saying is that it was just such Josh Brolin to do Thanos so brilliantly, and then to show up in Deadpool 2, as Cable. He nailed both of those roles, and so believable. And I've never seen so many man tears in a theater. And just watching Infinity War, when it came to the end, all these people turning to dust and all that, it was just crazy. So many people were just upset, and you just can't imagine how crazy it was. And of course, we know a lot of these heroes aren't dead. We're going to find out different things. And Ant-Man and the Wasp had a thing where at the end, spoiler if you hadn't seen it, but where people start turning to ash, and the finger snap, and he goes into the quantum realm. And so I think it's going to involve that. Doctor Strange, time travel, a little bit of everything. And I knew when Black Panther and Spider-Man were gone, I'm like, there's no way they're killing off Black Panther. He'll be back. And then Spider-Man, is it Far From Home, I think is the name of it? The sequel to Spider-Man Homecoming is coming out. Well, not this year. Maybe next year. But I think it's next year. I have to double check on that. But it's in production, heavily in production. And they're talking about possible trilogy, which, I could totally see that. Love Spider-Man Homecoming. I think that they finally got the right guy to play Peter Parker and Spider-Man. So I just think things have come together really well for that. And hopefully the sequel's better than Homecoming. And Homecoming was great. So, Spider-Man Homecoming. But anyway, Infinity War was just so epic. It was 10 years of Marvel. And, we've got Captain Marvel coming up next. Then we'll have whatever Avengers 4 is. It's pretty much that controversy of whether Mark Ruffalo gave it away, the actual title, and this and that, whether he's actually fired or not. We know that his arc as Hulk is coming to an end in number 4, and there's probably going to be a big, big fight where even the Hulk's going to be armored up and he's going to fight against Thanos. But one of the running rumors at this particular moment, and there's a million of them, no matter what you think, there's so many possibilities. And but so far it seems like the leak on Avengers Annihilation makes sense, but what's one of the rumors now is that there's going to be, and this could be spoilers, but the rumor is that Thanos is going to have to team up with the Avengers after the events, and he wipes out half of humanity, because they may be fighting, and I saw a thing on this the other day, and this is just pure speculation, but they could be fighting Galactus and not some smoke cloud from, those wonderful Fantastic Four films. But Galactus is not a cloud. Okay. But that would be great to see. You think Thanos is the end-all be-all badass, and then you end up with someone like Galactus. That's what we need to go to. And I think Captain Marvel, hopefully that film will be received well. Brie Larson looks great in the role. They've been complaining, some of the SJWs, that, she doesn't smile enough, Let's just, I don't care who's in a film. I really don't. I don't care what you look like, who you are, what you sound like, as long as you fit the part and you're true to the story, and the story itself is true to what is just generally accepted as, the acceptable storyline. So, as long, that's why some people were upset with Rian Johnson about The Last Jedi, and Star Wars fans are sometimes impossible to please. I'm one of them. Generally, Star Wars is like cold pizza. Even when it's bad, it's still good. And I mean, I like the prequels. I'm not ashamed to say I like the prequels. Revenge of the Sith is my favorite of the prequels, and it doesn't rank up there with the original trilogy. Of course, that comes first, but then it's very close on the chart up there. And Force Awakens, I'm welcoming to new things, but Last Jedi, I mean, there's so many things I could talk about, but Last Jedi, there was some plots in there that, I don't know, they could have done better, but still, I enjoyed Last Jedi. It was one of my top films of last year, if not my top film. And, but I'm not going to digress into that. But anyway, whatever Marvel's doing, their world building, DC needs to learn, obviously, because they've, Aquaman looks interesting as a film coming up. I'll go see it, but hopefully I don't know what's happening with DC, and I don't think they have a clue right now. Hopefully they have a plan, the viable plan that will work. So hopefully they're going to get all that together. So just inching ahead, because they left this in theaters pretty much the whole year, and the social consciousness of it, and it was a great movie. It's not my favorite MCU, Marvel Cinematic Universe movie, but Black Panther, 700 million, and it's just doing, so it's like the number one film of the year so far, but it did well. I mean, it had Killmonger, one of the best written villains ever, and he actually made the everything actually right. I mean, he changed the whole superhero and how the Black Panther was thinking about things. He changed it to actually, that he was right. I mean, he just had the wrong intentions, and kind of like Thanos. Thanos thinks he's right, but Thanos goes about it the whole wrong way that essentially makes him a villain. But could Thanos in Avengers 4 come back as a sort of good guy? But I mean, how do you forgive what Vader did? All the people he killed when he was Darth Vader, and then he comes back to the light. I don't know. But I don't know how you forgive something that grave. But anyway, so that's the top 10 movies for the year as it stands so far. And there's much more to come in the universes here. And I'm about to just wrap this up, okay? Just going to do a short episode, but this is like my top 10 or the top 10 box office for the year. And I was going to talk about the state of Star Wars, which I kind of did here. Talked a little bit Last Jedi and Solo. Oh, there's news that they have canceled the Boba Fett movie. So whether it's fan backlash or whatever, we're not getting that. I don't know if we're getting a Yoda standalone origin story, Star Wars story. We're getting the Mandalorian's TV series. I hope that does well. Star Wars Rebels is back. So I don't know what the state of Star Wars is. J.J. Abrams is back for episode 9. Spoiler alert that Luke is going to have some really strong presence in there. Mark Hamill's pretty much confirmed that he's in episode 9. I think he has to be. Obviously, he'll be a Force ghost or something unless they can do a time travel Thanos, Doctor Strange thing and turn back time and unkill him. But basically, the other day he said that using the Force is what killed Luke. So I don't know. It was a beautiful death for Luke Skywalker, but I don't know that it was what we wanted. We still wanted, I feel, a little cheated by the fact that he wasn't physically there to fight Kylo Ren. But, it was still kind of badass in its own way. And I'm excited to see. So we'll have a lot more coming up on the podcast here. I'm sorry I haven't been putting out episodes as much. I've been working on my radio show a lot, really focusing on that and work. And that's Savannah on Film. And you can check that on the Facebook. Hit that likes button. Go to YouTube. Listen to the recorded interviews on Savannah on Film if you want to know a little bit more about the film industry and all different positions. My radio show has been doing quite well, and I'm very proud of it, and I'm very thankful for the really diverse group of people I've had as guests on the show, and it's fun to interview, and I've always wanted to do radio, so checkbox on a bucket list item there. And I'll always love podcasting, so I was going to do a video version of this for the Geek Homeworld YouTube channel. You can go there and check it out. It's I could use some followers there, and I'm trying to build that up a little bit. So if you want to check that out, subscribe to that. These episodes will show up there anyway, but I'd like to put out more video and more interactive stuff. So I'm working towards that on the podcast here for Geek Homeworld. And I don't want to cross the streams too much, but so I've got Savannah on Film, which is the radio show I totally do. And it's on Facebook, and it's doing really well, and on the radio station and all that. And streamed worldwide too. And then you can go to YouTube, you can subscribe, hit that, little bell there for notifications too on Savannah on Film. So once I put up new episodes, or former interviews and stuff like that and all that, you'll be up to date. Plus on Savannah on Film on Facebook, if you go and like that there, you'll see some live streaming that I've started doing of some of the shows. So those are some of the things I've been working on. So it's been a busy year of creating, and there's so much more I wanted to do. And including film, including radio, including podcasting and much more. And so we'll see where 2019 leads us all. And I know it's been a little crazy bit of a year and tumultuous for everyone out there, but I hope that you just all look at each other and let's like the differences in each other, and let's all get along, and let's just try to do the right thing. And on this show, we're all about geeks, and we come from all different backgrounds and economic and socio-economic classes, and it doesn't matter. If you're a geek, you're a geek. You love cool geeky things, so let's all just pull together and just enjoy our geekdom, okay? And here's a good place, Geek Homeworld, to get your geek on. So anyway, enough rambling. Check us out on iTunes podcast, Geek Homeworld. You can go to geekhomeworld.libsyn.com. Follow us for the podcast episodes also. Follow us on Twitter at Geek Homeworld, or you can also follow me, Ed, at I'm at Savage Tech Man and on Twitter. Plus, Savannah on Film on YouTube. We've got that for the radio show, and of course, Geek Homeworld. You can subscribe on YouTube for that. So anyway, thank you very much, and I hope you're enjoying the time at the movies. And thanks for listening. This is episode 101 of the Geek Homeworld. Thanks. Goodbye. Thanks for listening to another episode of the Geek Homeworld with your host, Savage Tech Man. You can find us on Libsyn, Google+. Follow and interact with us on Twitter. Like us on Facebook. Listen to us on iTunes and leave a review. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Read our thoughts on Blogger. See you again on the Geek Homeworld.